Diablo 4 has never been more complicated than it is now with the Vessel of Hatred expansion. There are so many different activities that you can do while leveling, and it's hard to know when to focus on each one to maximize your progression. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video here. First, let's talk about levels 1 to 20. Now, if you haven't done the campaign yet, you're brand new to the game, you're going to start off by doing the base story campaign and then the Vessel of Hatred campaign. Once you've completed both of those, you'll be somewhere between level 40 and 60. 60 is now the max level. This is also when you would want to complete your renown progress so that you're unlocking the skill points, potion capacities, and Paragon points locked within this section. So if you're new to Vessel of Hatred or if you're new to Diablo, make sure to knock out your renown to unlock all of those while you're on your way to level 60. While leveling, you're just going to be following your gold quests and your purple quests. Your purple quests are going to be your priority quests. This is going to be seasonal items. It's going to be unlocking important endgame mechanics like the pit, infernal hordes, and the Undercity. Right, so you're going to want to do those purple quests as they pop up. Now, if this isn't your first character, let's say it's your second Vessel of Hatred character and beyond. What you're going to do then is at level 1, you're going to teleport over here to the den. At the den, you'll be able to hire a mercenary and a reinforcement. So you can have 2 mercenaries equipped at a time. Grab one as your primary mercenary. That's the one that's going to be out and fighting alongside you the entire time. The reinforcement, you can just attach to a specific ability. So if we come into the menu here, we can see the mercenary I have right now is Aldkin. You can pick the skills that they use and the passives straight away if you've unlocked them already. And then for reinforcement, you can come here and choose the ability that they're going to use when you do something specific. So you can attach it to one of your abilities once you have them unlocked, or you could have them come in and taunt the enemies and save you anytime you become injured or anytime you're hit with a crowd control effect, for example. So once you have your 2 mercenaries selected, now you're ready to do everything else just a little bit faster than you could before. So from levels 1 to 20 or so, you're going to head out and do Helltides. While you're in the Helltides, you're going to kill the enemies, collect cinders, and open as many chests as you can while you're in there. You're also going to make it a point to complete objectives for the Tree of Whispers so that you can turn in the Tree of Whispers every time that's ready to be turned in. So put a focus on Tree of Whispers areas inside the Helltides when you see it, and make sure you're opening as many chests as possible because opening a Helltide chest gives you a boost of XP every time you do so. Beyond that, you're also going to, of course, be tracking your season journey. This is something you're going to want to do every season, if for no other reason than at the very end of the season journey, you get a resplendent spark, and a resplendent spark is something that you use to craft the best items in the game, your ancestral mythic uniques. So keep an eye on this. Make sure you're doing the easy things as you're playing through, like the first chapter, it says complete 3 cellars. So you could hop into 3 cellars while you're in there, open tortured gifts during the Helltide, right? Very easy things to knock out as long as you're aware of the fact that you should be knocking them out. So keep an eye on that. This is also going to be giving you consumables and gear each time you finish one of these chapters. In no time flat, you'll be somewhere around level 20. And at that point, it's a good idea to run the few dungeons that are relevant to your build. Completing dungeons gives you an aspect. For instance, after killing an enemy with Shred, you gain 20 spirit. Your werewolf skills deal 20% increased damage when cast above 50 spirit. So this would be a great one for any werewolf running Shred. Similarly, do a quick search for the skill that you would like to use, or perhaps you find an aspect and then you want to build around it. Do a quick search for dungeon aspects that you could run and grab. And having just a few relevant aspects to your build will really ramp up the pace at which you're killing things. Now, by the time you're 20, you will definitely have found some gems and some socketed gear. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. Flat main stat gems are huge for your damage until you can find better runes to equip. So if you're a strength build, slap some strength gems into your gear. Just craft the best one that you can, whether it's chipped or flawless, and slap it into any socket of gear that you have. As for your weapon, if you're not sure what gems to put in there, most builds can't go wrong with emeralds. These are going to increase your critical strike damage. And if you're running a dot build, you can slap in some amethyst for some increased damage over time. In your jewelry, generally you're going to want to put skulls to get to your armor cap. Alternatively, if you have one resistance that you're really low on, you can put a gem in to fix that problem. So you could put a sapphire to get cold resistance. Or if all of your resistances are low, you can put a diamond to get all res. But until you hit your armor cap, it's never a bad idea to just slap skulls in all 3. Once you start finding some decent rune combinations, try them out, slap them in gear. You can only wear 2 rune words at once. So I've got one in this piece and one in this piece, which means these 2 sockets would have to be filled by gems instead of rune words. This is a dex-based character. We can see that by going to our dex line, and it says increases our skill damage. That's what we want. You want to put the stat that increases your skill damage, which for dex is going to be emerald. Right there, it says if you put this in armor, you get 60 dexterity. So craft 2 of those, craft, and slam them on in. Don't sleep on your gems. They are incredibly powerful. Main stat gems are big for your damage. Jeweler gems are big for your defense. Put these in when you can. And with the buffs that are coming to rune words, these are going to be a lot more useful while leveling than they were in the Vessel of Hatred open beta. Another thing to start doing between 20 and 40 is tempering. So when you get a really high item for your level, you can come in here, right? Especially if it has a good aspect and you know, oh man, I'm going to be using this aspect for a while. That's a good time to come in here, go to the tempering tab and add some stats to it. So for all of your offensive pieces of gear, like your weapons, your gloves, your jewelry, you can go ahead and add flat damage right here. We click this, it's going to add 63 to 90% damage. That's because I have the legendary one. You might not have the legendary one at the beginning of the season, right? So it's going to be lower value, but it's still going to be increasing your damage by a significant amount. You can't go wrong with natural finesse. Every build is going to be able to take advantage of at least a couple of these, right? So if you land on damage, great. That means you don't have to think about it anymore. You can just keep that. So we would temper this item until we got one of those useful stats. And you could do the same thing for gloves. So you slap a pair of gloves in there, come in here and roll natural finesse onto it until you get one of these damage stats that you want. Same with your jewelry. Come in here, natural finesse, right? And when you get natural finesse onto enough pieces of gear, your damage is really going to start popping off. You're really going to feel that. The next thing we need to do is make the character thicker. But first, now, speaking of putting on a few extra pounds, we all know how easy it is to put on some weight. You eat more calories than your body needs, and your weight goes up. Pretty simple, but so is the solution. And thanks to the sponsor of today's video, that's never been easier. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, and the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. It's cheaper than fast food, it's healthier than fast food, and it's easier than fast food. What more could you ask for? With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, it's never been easier to stick to healthy portion sizes. Get chef-prepared meals on the table in just 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals. You can use Factor to lose weight or to keep the weight off. In fact, that's exactly what I did. About a year ago, my doctor told me I was officially overweight. I was blindsided. I knew I put on a couple extra pounds, but being classified as overweight, that was a wake-up call. Fortunately, Factor's pre-portioned meals made it easy to avoid overeating. And when you're not overeating, the weight sheds itself. If you want to take control of your weight with less time, less effort, and less money than it takes to pick up expensive fast food, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code LUCKYGHOST50 to get a massive 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code LUCKYGHOST50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the video while you order your first box of healthy and delicious meals delivered to your doorstep. Now on your defensive pieces of gear, you can add life to your character. So we put the chest piece in here, for example, and we could roll defense and we could go for worldly endurance. And this is going to give you a flat life roll. This is always going to be useful while you're leveling up. Alternatively, if you're really low on a specific resistance, you can use the natural resistance to fix a gap in your resistances. Let's say all of them are looking pretty good. They're all around 50 or 70, and you've got one that's at 10. Well, you could temper on natural resistance until you got the resistance that you were way short on. Coming in here and tempering all of the items that you want to shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes, but it's going to give you such a massive power spike that you'll be able to blast through the next 10 or 20 levels of content, no problem. So to recap, put the offensive stat, natural finesse on anytime you can, and on defensive items, just slap on some life or some natural resistance as needed. Later on down the road, once you have the temper recipe to do so, you can look for the skill you're using and try to buff it specifically. The last thing you could start doing between 20 and 40 is enchanting your gear. Let's say you get a really decent item, but one of the stats on it is totally useless. It's missing something you need. You could come in here and reroll it. For instance, this one here has max life and critical strike damage, both of which are fine stats. But if I didn't want life on my weapon and instead I wanted to focus on doing more damage, I could click this and roll the max life on here. Now, before I do that, I'll want to click this and view the possible affixes to see how likely it is to get something that I want. Because sometimes you'll view the possible affixes and there will be a list of 16 different affixes. And you're like, oh, wow, it's pretty unlikely I'm going to get the thing I want without burning through all of my resources down here. But sometimes you'll just have a completely useless stat. So on this character, I would be happy with getting dex, damage, resource cost reduction, right? So there's 3 of them, or even vigor on kill might be useful early on. So I might roll the dice and see what happens. Generally speaking, if you're playing softcore, it's never a bad idea to just try to get more damage on your character. Usually doing more damage will solve all of your problems between level 1 and 60. If we put the amulet in here, just as an example, we click on the view possible affixes, you can see how hard it is to hit a specific affix. Look at how many there are here. Tons that it could land on. So this is why, generally speaking, for something like an amulet, you want to try to find an item that already has the stats on it that you want it to start with. Otherwise, you're going to be burning through all your crafting materials trying to get the one that you want. Now, once you hit 40, we're going to change gears. Up to this point, you've been running the dungeons that have the aspects you need. You've been running seasonal content to participate in that and to push that reward track. If we talk to the seasonal vendor and we say, show me my standing, you can see all the rewards that you're getting in here. And there's some really big ones for crafting materials, for Angel's Breath, for upgrading your potions, right? These are all really, really useful. So definitely participate in the season from time to time to make sure you're pushing those reward tracks. Also make sure that you are pushing your season journey, right? This one right here, so that you will get this resplendent spark at the end of it as soon as possible, but also because it's giving you these caches that are going to be full of legendaries that have aspects, and some of those aspects might be incredibly useful to making you stronger earlier. But at around level 40, it's time to switch gears and start doing strongholds. The reason is strongholds are giving you a static amount of XP, and this amount of XP doesn't change based on the difficulty of the stronghold. So you can drop the difficulty of the world down to normal and then blast through strongholds. You'll just go from one stronghold to the next. So here's one right here. This is the symbol you'll be looking for on your map. If you're not sure where the strongholds are, there's plenty of maps that you can find online that show each stronghold location. Just run from one to the next, and every time you do so, you're going to get a little bit more than a level. There's 6 regions, and each region has 3 strongholds for a total of 18 strongholds. So you're going to easily get your last 20 levels by completing them if you want to. Completing these is also going to be nice because there are dungeons that are locked behind some of these strongholds. So there's also legions that are locked behind some of these strongholds, and getting these done before you hit 60 means that there won't be a piece of content that you can't do later because it's locked behind one of these that you haven't done yet. All right, now let's talk about level 60. So once you've completed all those strongholds, you should be very near level 60, if not already 60. And the first thing you should do is any outstanding purple or priority quests. That's this symbol right here. If you haven't done any of those, make sure you knock those out because all the endgame content is locked behind priority quests, the purple ones. And so if you haven't done one of those yet, you won't be able to do the next set of things that I'm going to recommend you do. For example, the first thing you want to try to do is to unlock Torment 1. Torment 1 is when the end game starts. This is when you can start summoning and killing uber bosses. This is when you'll start getting the best gear. All of that's going to start happening in Torment, right? The game really begins in Torment. In Torment 1, you can find a best in slot piece of gear that you'll use for the rest of your playthrough. That's not going to happen in Penitent. That's why you want to get to Torment 1 ASAP. So how do we get to Torment 1? Well, doing everything that we've done up to this point will provide us with a really nice, strong character, and hopefully we'll have no problem going to Paragon, right? Now you've completed every priority quest that you needed to. If you haven't done these yet, make sure you knock them out because all of the endgame content is going to be locked behind priority quests, the purple ones, this color right here. So once you've done all of those, you'll be able to do these things. So for example, here's the pit. You come here and you need to complete tier 20. Torment 1. Once you complete tier 20 here, you will be able to change the difficulty of your world to Torment 1, and you'll now officially be in the end game. So do this as soon as possible. However, it's totally possible that you're in Penitent and you're still struggling a little bit, right? Or maybe you're not even in Penitent yet and you've hit 60. Maybe your build's just not coming online as fast as you would have liked. This happens sometimes. Diablo is a game of chance. It's a game of RNG. You have no control over a lot of the things that are given to you. And sometimes you're just missing the aspect that you need. You're missing the legendary that you need to really make your build shine. It happens to everyone sometimes. So don't feel bad if that's you. If you feel like I'm 60, but I'm nowhere near torment power level. That's okay. Stay in penitent, stay in expert, whatever you need to do to keep killing things, gather the aspects that you need, temper the items that you need to, right? And always be looking for higher item power items. You want to get all of your gear as close to 750 as possible. If you're level 60 and you have a piece of gear that's way below item power 750, then what you can do is, let's say it was my chest piece, right? All my other gear was really close to 750, somewhere above 700, but then my chest piece was like 450, right? Way below. I could come to the Purveyor of Curiosities. That's the bag with the question mark on it. And you use the obols that you've collected so far to gamble for a chest piece, right? So I could come in here, let's do this, and start gambling on chest piece. And look what I got. In those gambles, I managed to secure a few blues, but then I got a unique item, a rare, and another unique item. So you can get some really good items simply by gambling from the Purveyor of Curiosities. And look at these item levels, 750, 742. So it would be a significant upgrade from my 450 item. Now, Razor Plate is a very niche item specifically for Thorns builds. So you wouldn't want to necessarily wear this on something that wasn't a Thorns build. But this rare item right here would be perfectly fine. It's got Dex and Fire Resistance, 2 sets that are very useful for my build. And it's 2 sockets, right? So I could slap a rune combo in there. I could slap 2 primary stat gems in there to increase my damage. So don't forget to use the Purveyor of Curiosities to fill in the missing links. If you are wondering how to get obols, you just complete events. You'll be running around in the Hell Tides, for example, and you'll see a yellow circle on your minimap. Run to that circle, complete the objectives inside. There will be an event. Sometimes you have to click on it to start it. Sometimes you just have to walk into it and kill everything, but do that. And at the end, it'll drop obols. And the obols are what you're going to use to gamble. Now, all of the endgame activities all kind of work as providers for other endgame activities. So you're going to come to the pit for 2 reasons. One reason would be to unlock higher torment levels, right? This acts as the unlock. When you clear tier 35, you've unlocked torment 2 and you can change your world difficulty to torment 2. But the pit also has another use now. You come here to upgrade your glyphs. So if you have a glyph somewhere in your Paragon board and you want to level it up, you now run the pit instead of Nightmare Dungeons to level your glyphs. The only thing to be aware of is the pit is going to require Artificer Stones in order to run it. However, I have 184 here and I've been running quite a few pits. So this isn't a currency that I think you'll be running out of very often. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just know that there is a currency involved each time you attempt a pit. Another endgame activity you'll be participating in is this one right here, the Spirit Brazier, which takes you into the Undercity. So the Undercity is a nice way to target farm certain materials. So when you click on it, you can provide a tribute. What this means is you'll be collecting tributes as you play the game, and you can choose to use the one that gives you the thing you want. So this one right here, it says reward upgrades runes. So if I'm looking for runes, the Undercity with the Tribute of Harmony is going to be a great one to do. So we put that in there, and then we can further specify. So it says bargain, optional. We can choose to add more currency to further tailor our rewards. We could say, hey, I need legendary armor that provides resistances, or I need a legendary armor that provides skill tag ranks, right? And I could slot that there. And so now I'm target farming these things. Just be aware of the fact that when you slot a tribute in there, it's going to make the run harder. So if you look below the reward upgrades, you're also seeing how it's making it harder on you. This one here, your starting time is dropped down to 75 seconds. Your time bonus penalty is minus 25%. You look at these tributes that you find and you use the ones that are going to help you target farm the things that you want to target farm. If you want to know more about all the ins and outs and the strategy of the Undercity, make sure to check out my Vessel of Hatred complete beginner guide, where I dive into each of these endgame activities in way more detail. But I'm going to try to avoid doing that here to keep this video from getting too long. Another endgame activity that you're going to want to do is this one right here. It's the Dark Citadel. This is a weekly thing. So you complete each of the 3 raids every week, and when you complete all 3 in 1 week, you get a massive reward cache full of ancestral legendaries. Another big reason for going here is the currency that you can get, the Dark Citadel coins, which you can then use to purchase scrolls that will reset your tempering on an item. So if you run out of tempering attempts, it will give you all of your tempering attempts back while also leaving the tempers on the item that you have there. So very, very useful consumables can be found in here. At this point, you should also be finishing your seasonal content. The seasons are usually great ways to earn items, materials, and this season is no different. So definitely look around the map, look for that seasonal icon popping up somewhere. Right now, it's right here, right? The hatred rising, and we'd look for the realm walker to spawn, and we'd go and we'd kill it, and a portal would open up. We'd go in that portal, and we get big rewards for doing so. It would also progress that track we talked about earlier with all the rewards inside of it. Now, nightmare dungeons aren't nearly as important as they used to be, but they are still useful. You can run nightmare dungeons to look for runes, to look for glyphs, crafting materials, and also they're a great way to get renown if you're still missing renown, because every time you complete a nightmare dungeon in a zone, you're going to get the renown for completing that dungeon if you haven't already collected it. And the final activity that you should be doing is your infernal hordes. Now, the difficulty for all of these is determined by the difficulty of the world. So if you have your world set to Torment 1, then all of those activities will be Torment 1 difficulty. The only thing that doesn't work that way now is the pit. So when you go into the pit, you set the tier, but everything else, the difficulty is determined by the world tier that you've set the game to. So if you've set the world difficulty to Torment 1 or Torment 2, then when you open up a nightmare sigil, that nightmare dungeon is going to be Torment 1 or Torment 2, depending on what you picked. Or when you use a compass to open up an infernal horde, then that difficulty is going to be the same as the world tier that you're on at the time. Infernal hordes are a great source of gear, crafting materials, or gold. You get to pick which one you want when you complete the infernal horde. If you do really well, you can grab 2 of the 3. So you can grab a lot of gear and you can grab either crafting materials or gold. You'll have to choose one or the other. So if you need crafting materials, infernal hordes are a great place to go. If you need gold, they're a great place to go. Or if you need gear, right? Anytime you have one of these, it's not a bad idea to run it. And also they are a fantastic source of XP per hour because the mobs just constantly spawn and you kill them. They spawn and you kill them, and it's really fast spawns. So your XP will skyrocket in here. Now, once you've done a few rotations of those activities, you're probably going to be ready for Torment 1 if you're not already there, right? You've cleared Pit 20, you're in Torment 1, now the end game's starting, and what that means is you'll have been collecting these items here. They're light blue, and they say summoning at the top. So these are items you use to summon the end game bosses, and the reason for killing these bosses is because they drop ancestral uniques. So like this item right here that I'm wearing, I killed one of these bosses and it dropped it. Same thing for this ancestral unique, right? So these bosses are massive power spikes, and they're not nearly as hard as you might expect them to be. Once you're blasting Torment 1, you'll be able to blast these bosses. So as soon as you feel like, hey man, I'm really crushing Torment 1 difficulty, head over to one of these bosses, summon it, and see how it goes. If you've got friends, you can share the summons. So only one of you puts the ingredients in, everybody gets to fight the boss, and everybody gets to collect the loot. So you can get even more attempts that way if you have a friend to run it with. Doing this as soon as you're able to easily clear Torment 1 ensures that you're going to get really solid power spike once you've completed your round of boss fights that you have access to so far. If you hover over these summoning materials, it tells you where each one comes from in case you want to target farm specific materials. And if you want to know everything there is to know about fighting the Uber bosses, like where each one is located, how to get all of the ingredients, and how to summon these bosses, then check out my complete beginner guide linked in the description, where I do an in-depth dive of each of these boss fights and how to do them. After that, guys, it's going to be doing more of the same. You're going to be pushing those pit tiers higher and higher so that you're leveling your glyphs more and more, making them stronger. You're going to be getting levels to progress your Paragon board. You're going to be running infernal hordes at higher torments to get better items. You're going to be rotating through all of those endgame systems to keep pushing your character to the strongest that it can be. If you made it this far, hopefully you liked the video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments below. I try to read and answer every single one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing for more. Massive shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you guys for supporting me in the big way you do. If you want to become a channel member for access to a private Discord channel, behind the scenes footage, and more, click the link in the description below. If you're not sure what to do next, check out my Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred Complete Beginner Guide, where I dive into every system in Vessel of Hatred. It's a great video to listen to while you play. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.